Ohio State at Notre Dame. I think this was an awesome game, right? I mean, there could have been a lot more points scored on the board, a lot of points left on the board. I thought Sam Hardman. I think people are blaming Sam Hardman a lot for that. I don't think there's a ton of blame. Dude was lowering the shoulder, fighting for first downs in the first quarter of this game. I mean, what are we talking about here? This dude's got it, right? He's gonna be fine. Kyle McCord wasn't insanely impressive on the other side of the ball. Van Henderson had an explosive play. I mean, this is an awesome game. It does stink that Notre Dame had like 10 guys on the field that last play. And Marcus Freeman in the post game press conference was like, well, we didn't want to send someone late on the field and get a penalty. Oh, so it would
Dude,
be half the distance to the goal. Like what?
he also mentioned that it was they were gonna call timeout, but like you were out of timeouts. What like the good old Chris Webber effect? I don't know. I think that was interesting.
Yeah, I thought yeah, I mean, look, Ohio State just knew what they needed to do. This was a tough game on the road. Like it was. Notre Dame actually, I thought ran the ball pretty decently. I think they averaged like 5.5 yards per play. So it's not like they weren't doing anything, right? They were still kind of decently moving the ball. It's just a slower game, slower paced game. I thought neither defensive line was taking over the game, and I actually was impressed with Notre Dame's defensive line. I've been not pooping on them, but I've been kind of weary to trust them in any sense. But Notre Dame's offensive line held up against Ohio State's defensive line. I think these secondaries just balled out for every team in big plays and big moments when it mattered, man. When it mattered. I'm still high on both of these teams. I think both these teams can still make the playoffs from here. I think a lot of people are like, oh, Notre Dame, they can't win a conference championship. Like, dude, they can, like, USC is on that schedule. I mean, Duke
Duke
is on
this
that
week.
schedule. What? Yeah. I mean, they still have their schedule is still insanely loaded. So I don't have a
Stanford.
problem with putting if they at Stanford. Oh gosh, what we talk about strays. Stanford just took a stray right there. That was crazy. But yeah, Notre Dame with the schedule can still make the playoffs. I think. Ohio State looking good. Although if you're Michigan though, you might be licking your chops. And granted, Michigan hasn't looked great so far this year, but you might be licking your chops, thinking, "Well, you might be able to run the ball again." Penn State might be thinking, "Oh, you might be able to run the ball in this defense." But yeah, credit Jim Knowles though, getting it done though when it matters. I think people there's a lot of doubters on that guy, a lot of doubters. But credit Ohio State for a dogfight of a win, dogfight of a win.
This is one of those, turning point type of games. I think, for Ohio State, obviously it wasn't pretty at all, but that last drive, you have to be impressed with Kyle McCord and that offense and what they did when they needed it to. And it was guys not named Marvin Harrison Jr. Right. And he had the big catch on that, on the last drive. Obviously was banged up, for the fourth quarter of that game. But Emeka Egbuka is really, really good. Cade Stover is awesome. He's probably becoming one of my favorite players in college football, just with how he plays. Xavier Johnson obviously had that big catch and run. And then obviously it was Chip Trinan to punch it in there at the end. I do think there are still question marks offensively with Kyle McCord. I think they just pressured him all night, and I think he made some plays. He made some bad plays, obviously, but I think this is huge for Ohio State and a confidence booster for Kyle McCord. You saw how excited all of them were, and this was a dogfight. Like this game, the spread was 3. Like this was supposed to be a close game, and that's exactly what it was. All the hype around it, all the home crowd for Notre Dame was actually awesome. A lot of people poop on that stadium, for not having big time crowds in big time games, and they were awesome. The green out there worked for sure. Lou Holtz in attendance there. Obviously got a shot from Ryan Day there, which I thought was crazy. Like the guy's like senile. He's super old, and I love Lou Holtz from back in the day. Mark Nate doesn't know. I mean, he was one of our childhood heroes, but regardless, yeah, I still think Notre Dame's fine. Like you said, they can do everything they want. Like this is a legit Notre Dame team right away. And I was watching this game, and then I was watching the Arkansas LSU game, and I was like, what happens if Brian Kelly loses? Obviously they ended up winning against Arkansas, but Brian Kelly loses and Notre Dame gets a win there. Like that is Could you imagine how many different those fan bases will be feeling with Marcus Freeman? And I
Yeah.
think you can still feel that for sure. I think it's more validating for Marcus Freeman and what he's done in such a short time there, actually being able to compete and look like the same class as a really, really talented Ohio State team already in year two. Obviously, Sam Hartman's got a lot to do with that. I thought he played great. I thought any other quarter, I mean, Tyler Buckner, could you imagine what he would do in that game? He'd be horrible. Who would throw
It'd be like last year.
interceptions, fumbles? Exactly. Yeah. And that game was close, kind of. But um, yeah, I still think Notre Dame, they've got some big games on their schedule for sure. Like you mentioned, Ohio State's got a bye week, much needed, I think, much needed, even though they haven't played anybody up to this point. But this is a physical game for them. And you got to get Marvin Harrison Jr. healthy, rest them against Maryland and Purdue if you have to get ready for going. You're hosting Penn State October 21st.